I want to welcome Deshaun Tate from Tate's Take radio show on air, man. The NBA been buzzing. He got some updates on the NBA stuff. What's going on? How you doing, man?
I'm blessed and well, man. How about yourself? Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, no, it's been like the NFL. Really, the off season been just like the NFL nowadays, man.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, man. It's been busy. I wasn't really expecting for it to be like this coming off with draft week. I mean, I figured it'd probably get pretty hectic a little bit, man. But nevertheless, man, been a lot busier than expected. So that's all good for basketball fans who figured over the course of the summer, man, that you never really knew what you was gonna get. Might get kind of boring with a lot of baseball, but big headlines in the NBA, man, is always good.
Yeah, I think they're trying to compete with the NFL because the NFL all season is almost just as good as the regular season with no game. So,
Yeah, man, like I said, I mean, I agree with you, man. I mean, when you're talking about the off season, I mean, I think this is the busiest sport when you're talking about off seasons. I mean, granted, with, football being an American sport and whatnot, even during some of the off season there, it seemed like it was kind of slowed down a little bit with the exception of some guys getting some pretty big contracts, things of that nature, some big-time quarterbacks coming off of injury. Of course, the Tim Tebow saga and the Aaron Hernandez thing. But outside that, it seemed like we've been pretty slow for football. Everybody's kind of itching for it to, grow a lot more and stuff like that, get a lot bigger and talk about it a little bit more. But basketball seems to be the thing that everybody's talking about as of late.
Yeah, it's news coming out every day. What's the newest news for the day, man?
I think it'd be pretty good. I mean, the biggest thing is that they have to find an identity and figure out what type of basketball team they are themselves. I think first things first is when you think about the Detroit Pistons, just as far as, the tradition and the organization, you think bad boys, you think defense, you think physical play. And I do think that I believe that Josh Smith is every little last bit of that. As you can see, he's a very versatile player. Very agile, very mobile. His mobility is really good. Obviously, athleticism has been like that ever since he joined the league and was the slam dunk champion. But I think they have to find an identity first as an organization, trying to figure out who they want to be. Do they want to go back to being the same old bad boys of old, be physical and defensive-minded, things of that nature? Obviously, they got some pieces to put around him as well. Greg Monroe and a couple of the other bigs. Andre Drummond. Obviously, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. It seems like they're recruiting all the way around for the state of Georgia, from college to the pro. So I really think that big things to come for the Detroit Pistons. Just going to come down to putting some other pieces around them and trying to figure out what they're going to do from this point guard perspective. That's kind of a little bit in a little bit of a loop a little bit.
How do you think he'll fit in with the team there?
I think it'd be pretty good. I mean, the biggest thing is that they have to find an identity and figure out what type of basketball team they are themselves. I think first things first is when you think about the Detroit Pistons, just as far as, the tradition and the organization, you think bad boys, you think defense, you think physical play. And I do think that I believe that Josh Smith is every little last bit of that. As you can see, he's a very versatile player. Very agile, very mobile. His mobility is really good. Obviously, athleticism has been like that ever since he joined the league and was the slam dunk champion. But I think they have to find an identity first as an organization, trying to figure out who they want to be. Do they want to go back to being the same old bad boys of old, be physical and defensive-minded, things of that nature? Obviously, they got some pieces to put around him as well. Greg Monroe and a couple of the other bigs. Andre Drummond. Obviously, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. It seems like they're recruiting all the way around for the state of Georgia, from college to the pro. So I really think that big things to come for the Detroit Pistons. Just going to come down to putting some other pieces around them and trying to figure out what they're going to do from this point guard perspective. That's kind of a little bit in a little bit of a loop a little bit.
I got you. They gonna keep everybody good. So they got a lot of players for the same position to me on their team. They got a lot of the same players.
I'm glad you say that, man. That's a very good question. Obviously, from the point guard position, it seems like they got a lot of point guards, but not pure point guards. And the pure point guards that they have is not really able to get the job done the way they wanted to. Obviously, a couple years ago, they bring in Brandon Knight, who has pretty much been a little bit of been on YouTube all over the place lately, and not for good reasons, of course, but nevertheless, outside of that, they bring in Peyton Seaver to help out at the point guard position. Obviously, he's very undersized at that position as well. When you're talking about, I believe it's Will Bynum, and I want to say Will Bynum, a Georgia Tech product. So now you're looking at a Georgia product, a Georgia Tech product, Atlanta Hawk product. I mean, Atlanta is all over the place in the Motor City right now, but, you know, he gives you everything that you can handle, you know, from the point guard position as far as from a defensive perspective, in addition to, you know, a leadership perspective. But he's a backup, you know, second string backup at very best. He's definitely not a starting point guard. And then trying to see exactly what you're going to get out of one of the other guys, being Rodney Stuckey. And I mean, obviously, you kind of at a point where you want to wash your hands with him. You're so ready to do that. He still needs a little bit of help under veteran guard Chauncey Billups. Of course, things didn't go the way as planned with that. So now you're kind of in a situation where Rodney Stuckey's not giving you what was expected of him. I think they relied on him a little bit too much after losing Chauncey Billups.
I was going to move on to the next big move. Was yesterday, Dwight Howard going to H-Town.
Well, I think that was one of the best moves, you know, for Dwight Howard and obviously for the Houston Rockets. I know that was one of the places that Josh Smith actually was talking about joining, maybe making a big three with, you know, between Josh Smith and Dwight Howard and the beard man, as they call him, James Harden. But nevertheless, it didn't work out that way, and I think that it was probably best. I don't like to say that Dwight Howard is exactly a head case. I don't think that that's fair. In some cases, and I have my own personal opinions, you know, that's what we're here for. This is take. So I think he's a little spoiled in some ways, and he just needs to mature quite a bit. And I think he'll have that opportunity to do that. You know, in Houston, it's been known he's worked a little bit with Clyde Drexler and, you know, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, amongst other guys, really good friends with Chandler Parsons. You know, so I just think that, you know, in this kind of situation, it'll force him to grow up. The market isn't as big as it was in L.A. Fairly equal somewhat in some cases to the Orlando market, which is really not too big, but it's not like you're playing somewhere in Toronto or Vancouver when the Grizzlies was there either. So you'll definitely have the opportunity to get a chance to, you know, put him in his comfort zone, and Hollywood Howard definitely wasn't the answer. So I think he'll be a little bit more comfortable, especially considering head coach Kevin McHale is a big-time defensive player. They got some other good defensive players there around him as well. My biggest concern, though, would definitely be for the Houston Rockets and what they're going to bring off of that bench.
Is that the ideal fit out of all the teams who wanted him?
I think that it is. I think that it is because they needed a center, and, I mean, a lot of people have given Omar Asik a whole lot of praise. I'm still not sure they're going to do with Jeremy Lin just yet. Of course, that's a whole different position at the point guard position, but still, Omar Asik says, hey, you know, now he's about ready to get up out of town, still kind of indecisive on what's going to happen with him. Of course, Atlanta is in some of the talks for him and Jeremy Lin, but nevertheless, I think that it is very ideal. You know, you got the Birdman there. You got one of the better up-and-coming role players in Chandler Parsons. And, I mean, you got a couple other little pieces there. It seems like they've washed their hands with Royce White, sending him to Philadelphia. So, you know, still trying to see what they can get. They're still going to build around that over some time. And it is going to take some time. And that's what it comes down to. I think over time and giving him an opportunity to mature and then work together within the organization, the city is going to show him a lot of love. I think it's definitely big things to come in the Lone Star State.
Okay, I thought the perfect fit for him would be Golden State with Andre Iguodala picking him up and how well they played already and man onto him and then onto it. So I thought that'd be a perfect fit. And how would Andre Iguodala help out Golden State?
Well, I mean, you know, when you were talking about Dwight Howard being a good fit, I mean, I definitely think so, the same thing. I think if anybody can get him straightened around a little bit from the mental aspect, I mean, when you're looking at a game like Dwight Howard, real quick before we move on to AI the second, Andre Iguodala, don't want to confuse the two, but, you know, when you're talking about, you know, Dwight Howard, you know, I mean, I think Mark Jackson could have really put a fire up under his butt and got, you know, some of the best basketball out of him, but I definitely think with, you know, a lot of three-point shots that they shoot there and which they do with Houston as well, I definitely think that, you know, either way it still would have worked out to the benefit of Dwight Howard because they'd be able to space the floor a little bit better when they're on the offensive end, and you can't leave, you know, Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry open. Obviously, Andre Iguodala, who can, you know, slash a little bit and a pretty good jump shooter. Give him that option. You got to put Dwight Howard on the line, and in this case, he has to make those free throws. He's forced to. So in disciplinary reasons, I think that he will. But moving on to Andre Iguodala, it's the perfect fit, you know. And there was a certain point in time when I said, hey, who would be a perfect fit between he and Josh Smith? And it's kind of like, you know, you can kind of go either or, you know, from that standpoint. It's kind of like, you know, 1A or 1B, you know, in that kind of situation. But nevertheless, I think it'll fit good. Obviously, you know about the transition game. They like to get up and down. They like to shoot a lot of threes. Andre Iguodala, like I said before, with his athleticism and versatility, he can throw things off and be able to get to the cup better than a lot of the guys. Obviously, he reminds you a lot of Vince Carter with his athleticism and his abilities to get to the basket. You know, I really like, in that case, I think something that's kind of hurting Golden State at this point is Andrew Bogut, you know, with some of the knee issues. Kind of reminds me, and I don't want to make too much of a joke of it, but kind of reminds me a little bit of not Ilgauskas, but Arvydas Sabonis, the old guy from the Portland Trail Blazers. Kind of can't jump over a cell phone or anything like that, but nevertheless, if they really want to get on transition, they got to move him to the side a little bit. Eventually, part ways with him and bring on Festus Ezeli a little bit more. I think Festus Ezeli over time, the big center from Vanderbilt, he'll come along a whole lot better and he'll give them what they need.
Yeah, Mark Jackson will. I think Mark Jackson's the perfect coach for him because Dwight Howard. I know we transitioned to Golden State, but Dwight Howard, he got too many funny games in him. Man, it's too much Hollywood stuff going on with him.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest things for that, man, hip hop was just the simple fact that, you know, I mean, he's here to have fun. I'm not really sure if he understands the seriousness of the game, and I know that he wants rings and things of that nature, but I'm not sure if it's clicking yet as to everything that it takes in order to get one of those rings. Now, obviously, you would think that he'd been on the cusp of being able to get a championship a few years back with the Orlando Magic and leading them to the NBA Finals, and that might have you, you know, thinking optimistic if you're in the city of Houston that, hey, this thing can be done for the way that he led that team, who he didn't have an extreme, I don't even think he had another all-star on that team. Being able to do that, you hadn't seen that since the bad boy Detroit Pistons, where guys just did not have any superstar players on the team, and he led them. But it's kind of, you know, putting you in a situation where you almost kind of have to think like, hey, you know, can he be able to do that again? And have we seen the best of Dwight Howard? Of course, you got some health concerns and things of that nature, but I think that that'll be just fine. He'll be prepared to come into Houston, but you have to stay away from that social media and be defriending Kobe Bryant all over Twitter, and they're not friends anymore and all this other kind of nonsense. You got to put that kind of stuff to the side if you're big number 12 in Houston and go out there and try and do the best that you can.
Yep. I think he gonna live and learn. That Boston Celtics has made a big splash over the week. And what's your take on this? Is it a great hire or not?
It's really kind of hard to say. I mean, at this point, I'm not going to say it's a great hire. I don't think at any point going to get someone of the caliber of a Brad Stevens, I don't think that I'll ever say that it would be a great hire. But the only time that it would be a great hire is in the event that, you know, Brad Stevens turns out to be the next best thing up and coming, or over time. And that's another one of those things that's obviously going to take time. I mean, for a guy who I want to say is, you know, 36 or 37 years old and looks like he's 6 or 7 years old, you know, him being one of those guys is kind of hard for me to imagine. The fact that, you know, let alone, I don't know if he recruited any McDonald's All-Americans or top-notch players when he was there at Butler University, but nevertheless, he didn't get any, and, you know, he got the best out of his players, and of course, that's Butler, that's Indianapolis, Indiana, right in the heart of, and Horizon League. I know they're not in Horizon League anymore, they're now in a different conference that's just been named over from the Big East, but nevertheless, you know, it's kind of one of those things like, how receptive will the players be? Are guys going to listen to him? I mean, in this case, you can only imagine. There's a possibility that Rajon Rondo more than likely is going to be leaving Boston Celtics the same way that Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Jason Terry did. But, I mean, the kind of problems that they said that they've had, Doc Rivers has never had a problem out of a guy, since he's been coaching all these years, and Rajon Rondo pops up to be the very first guy he's had problems out of, with the kind of resume from top to bottom that Doc Rivers provides, and him having problems out of Rajon Rondo the way that he has, which has surprised me a whole lot, because I didn't think that Rajon Rondo was that type of guy. It's kind of like rumors being spread around. Nevertheless, bumping heads or not, it's kind of hard for me to imagine that, that Rajon Rondo is going to listen to a guy that looks younger.
Yeah. Gotcha. So what's your prediction on Boston next year?
This kind of reminds me before the Big Three even came along. I think they had, won like 17 games, I think, that season. I don't remember, and everybody in the stand, the few people that there were, the few couple hundred people, if I generously saying a couple hundred people that were at the games all had like concession stand popcorn bags over their heads at the game. So I can only imagine it's going to be another one of those kind of seasons. But nevertheless, you almost got to consider that the smartest thing to do right now would be to tank the season, which I don't like the thought of anybody tanking a whole season just to try and go after a Jabari Parker or a Andrew Wiggins or anybody for that matter. I don't believe in that, but nevertheless, I mean, it's almost going to be that's what's going to happen, especially if rumors continue about Rajon Rondo leaving Massachusetts.
That's the problem. You just named two names worth taking the season for. I appreciate you joining us. Come on anytime.
We'll do it.
And that's Tape's Tape. No problem. I'll see you soon, man.
I appreciate it, man. Y'all go ahead and check out the homie Hip Hop, man, doing real big things, man. Very appreciative of all the work you put in. Remember to follow us at Takes Take _8508. That is at Takes Take, TATESTAKE _8508. Thanks so much, Hip Hop, man. Stay up.
I'll talk to you soon.